From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador. This is from the south, sorry, and I'm Saini Gray. In the coming hours, the nations of the world would vote on a draft resolution presented by Cuba calling for an end to the US blockade. During several hours of debate at the United Nations on Wednesday, there was unanimous support for the resolution. Cuba's Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez is expected to address the General Assembly. He has accused the United States of seeking to water down the resolution as it seeks to tighten the blockade against Cuba. In a shift this year, the U.S. presented 8 amendments that criticized Cuba's human rights record. However, speakers in the debate took little notice of those amendments.
The Caribbean community reiterates its unequivocal opposition to the United States' imposition of the economic, commercial, and financial embargo against Cuba, which has been in place for nearly 6 decades. The embargo has caused undue hardship on the Cuban people for nearly 2 generations. For almost 30 consecutive years, this General Assembly has opposed, by an overwhelming majority, this unilateral and coercive measure. CARICOM views these sanctions as a contravention of the precepts of international law, including humanitarian law, inconsistent with the policies of free trade, and in conflict with the norms and principles governing peaceful relations among states. In more recent years, this resolution has garnered resounding global support, with all member states voting to end the embargo on Cuba, with the exception of 2. This near-unanimous vote in favor of immediately ending the economic, commercial, and financial embargo against Cuba is a clear indication of prevalent disapproval by the UN membership.
In an exclusive interview with Telesur, Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez told our correspondent Jorge Gestoso that the United States has been brazenly trying to put pressure on member countries.
It was clear in the General Assembly to see US officials trying to exert pressure directly, sometimes almost public pressure, not only against representatives of member states, but also about officials of the General Secretary of the United Nations itself. It's been clear and public, and we should condemn before the world that the US State Department has tried not only to water down and distort the resolution, not only to sabotage the process of decision-making about it, but is also exerting strong pressure to force some countries to support their amendments.
And just ahead of the vote, South Africa is expressing solidarity with Cuba. Deputy House Speaker Solomon Saloni called the U.S.-imposed blockade unjust. He says South Africa will never support such measures.
The U.S. blockade of Cuba is unfair. It's not in line with democratic pursuit of each nation's self-determination. It is inappropriate for any one of us, no matter our size, to impose our wishes on others because of the power that we presumably at the moment may conduct. Historically, in the United Nations forums, the majority of countries, and this is a huge majority, have objected to sanctions against Cuba. We remain committed to that.
Dozens of migrants who form part of the second caravan heading towards Wixla, Mexico, have been detained by federal police and migration officials. Telesur correspondent Pablo Perez is on the ground in Tapachula and finds this report.
Well, we are standing outside of Tapachula's airport. This is the place where at least 4 buses full with migrants have been taken from the migration offices in Tapachula, where they were detained for a while. Those were migrants marching today from Tapachula to Wixla, and those that were left behind of the big group were like handpicked by the federal police and then delivered to the Mexican Migration Office. Well, it seems that the police was accusing the migrants, the scattered migrants along the way, that they had crossed the border irregularly or they had committed a minor fault, and so they were to be handed to the National Migration Service, which, well, it's not what they accorded when they crossed the migration office at the Suchiate River in Ciudad Hidalgo. So, well, again, they say that they need to group together at Huixtla, and they're hoping to get together with the first caravan that is today at Juchitán, Oaxaca, so they can find safety in numbers.
Even the tiredness from the long walks can't stop the second group of migrants heading north through Mexico. They're hoping to catch up with the first caravan, and that's why they start their journey very early each morning.
At night, migrants plan for the day ahead, when they will continue their journey.
We have little time to rest. Look at those people. They are bathing. They are resting because their bodies are in pain and the water helps.
It's difficult for some of them to start the walk at 3 in the morning. Their wounded feet, worn-out shoes, and the lack of food hinder their progress. This caravan is the most ethnically diverse. Although they hail from various countries, they all share the same goal and reasons for migrating.
I have 3 daughters and I can't support them. The situation in Guatemala is very bad. That is why I joined the caravan.
The first group of the migrant caravan, who entered Mexican territory 10 days ago, want to get to Mexico City.
We should join and form a single caravan. We hope we can meet them, because that way we will be stronger. Central America all together.
There are approximately 390 kilometers between the first and second migrant caravan. They plan to meet in the Mexican capital. The long and hard days don't matter to them. All they want is to join forces with the first caravan so they can be stronger and safer on the road together.
And hundreds of Salvadorians have begun a fourth caravan of migrants heading towards the United States.
From very early in the morning, hundreds of people gathered to begin their own journey towards the United States, in what would be the second caravan that departs from this country. Lucy Peña travels with her 2 teenage children and 2 very young grandchildren.
Poverty forces us to migrate and leave our own country, although sometimes in other countries they believe that we are going to take their jobs. We are only looking for something better for our kids, and that is the reason we are walking.
This second caravan is divided in 3 groups. Some decided to go to the border city of San Cristobal, although most went toward La Chadura. Several walked, but others were helped by drivers to reach their destination.
We brought toothpaste, toothbrushes, we have cookies, non-perishables, and water. We know that the help we are given is not a lot, but it's something, compared to not giving them anything at all, and only staying at home and posting things on Facebook or Twitter.
Brochures have been distributed that explain the risks of this irregular migration. Authorities have even identified human traffickers who have infiltrated the caravans.
Illegal traffickers are people that are taking advantage of the situation. They are looking out for their personal benefit and they are making offers to people that may be naive.
On Wednesday afternoon, Customs offices were crowded by a wave of Salvadoran migrants that in a short period of time traveled around 120 kilometers to the border with Guatemala.
U.S. President Donald Trump has said that the number of troops that will be deployed to the Mexican border could reach as high as 15,000. Operations will be focused in the states of Texas, Arizona, and California. Over 5,000 troops are expected to be deployed by the end of the week. Around 2,000 soldiers are already stationed at the border.
As far as the caravan is concerned, our military is out. We have about 5,008. We'll go up to anywhere between 10 and 15,000 military personnel on top of Border Patrol, ICE, and everybody else at the border. Nobody's coming in. We're not allowing people to come in. If you look at what happened in Mexico 2 days ago, with the roughness of these people in the second caravan that's been forming, and also, frankly, in the first caravan, and now they have one forming in El Salvador. And we are thinking very seriously, immediately stopping aid to those countries because, frankly, they're doing nothing for the American people.
Mexico's Interior Minister has asked the United States to respect its migrant policy as President Donald Trump calls for up to 15,000 troops at the Mexican border. Alfonso Navarrete Prida said undocumented migrants are not criminals, and he asked the U.S. President to abide by Mexico's policy and to simply have a heart.
Their strong desire to reach the United States of America are fueled by their need to escape very adverse conditions. There is a very xenophobic attitude towards migration, which is not being seen in other parts of our hemisphere. And it is because they are living in a moment of wider political conjuncture in the United States, with midterm elections ahead. This often generates political controversy, when what is actually needed is humanitarian aid.
We'll take a short break now. More news in a minute. Welcome back. A court in Ecuador has ordered the preventative detention for 5 journalists who used to work under the former president, Rafael Correa. One of them is the journalist Marco Antonio Bravo, who was the head of the country's first news agency. He condemned it as political persecution. He says there is no evidence to link him to any corruption. And in a tweet, Bravo showed the exact moment he presented himself to the police in Quito. His family, including his 5-year-old daughter, are seen with him.
Here I am, President Moreno. You are destroying a family with your political hate. Hate against all of us who have worked with President Rafael Correa. I blame you on everything my family is going through. I am leaving my 5-year-old daughter.
And Ecuador's former Vice President Jorge Glass has been on a hunger strike for over 10 days. He started it after being moved to a maximum security prison. Family members and supporters are asking the government not to ignore his deteriorating health.
Jorge Glass went on a hunger strike after he was moved to Ecuador's maximum security prison. According to authorities, his transfer was due to security concerns after the escape of former Communications Secretary Fernando Alvarado. Family and colleagues have said that this violates the rights of former Vice President.
He has not eaten in 10 days. His health is getting worse, and the media are not seeing that.
The wife of Jorge Glass, a member of the Citizen Revolution movement, asked authorities to not ignore Glass' health. They are also asking that he be transferred to another prison where he will at least get proper medical attention.
I'm not here as a politician, and I thank all of those who stand with me. Today it's my husband, but tomorrow we don't know who it may be. I ask for mercy. Please don't ignore this hunger strike.
One of the lawyers of Glass' legal team pointed out that they presented an habeas corpus request, which has been rejected by the judge. They said this decision is based on political interest that puts Jorge Glass' life at risk.
If Jorge Glass loses his life, it'll be due to the indifference of the authorities. They have been warned. If he dies, it will be under the presumption of innocence. The state will have to answer to his family for such a heinous crime.
The legal team also confirmed they had one more legal resource through which the court ruling could be ratified, modified, or he may even be set free. They added that the Constitution says each person is innocent until proven guilty. Thus, Jorge Glass is still innocent before the law. Denise Herrera, Telesur, Ecuador.
A court in Peru has ordered the detention of the opposition leader Keiko Fujimori. Judge Richard Concepcion Cahuanco convicted Fujimori to 36 months of a preventative detention. The ruling came after the judge analyzed a request by the public ministry. Fujimori is under investigation for alleged money laundering during her presidential campaign. People for and against the court's decision protested in the capital of Peru. Cheers and jeers were heard from supporters from the critics of Keiko Fujimori as they took to the streets of Lima after the order for her to arrest her was announced.
It makes me very sad because today the criminality, the persecution, the witch hunt have come out victorious. They are the ones who have won.
As citizens, we have come to express that what the judge is doing is a good thing. It's enforcing the rights of all Peruvians, and in this case, as the Fujimoristas don't like what one's saying, they act with aggression, hitting people with their sticks, throwing eggs, throwing water, insulting.
Brazil's President-elect Jair Bolsonaro has announced he plans to reduce the number of ministries from the current 29 to 16 or 15. He wants to merge the agriculture environmental ministries, a decision heavily criticized by environmentalists. This is part of his economic program that also includes the privatization of most of the state companies, including Petrobras. Bolsonaro says he will also cut taxes on businesses. The indigenous people of the Colombian Amazon have urged the government to consider fundamental issues for their communities.
In the government's National Development Plan, the people of the Amazon want the government of Iván Duque to ask them about 36 safeguard plans.
Out of over 1,500 agreements, only 6% have been fulfilled. When it comes to territory, we can say the government does not want the indigenous people to occupy even 1 millimeter.
The constant threat of being displaced while the government continues its extractivist policies is making indigenous communities lose confidence.
The National Commission for Human Rights of Indigenous Peoples of Colombia has, in its database, over 900 oil projects that are underway in various departments of the country.
The combination of multinationals, government indifference, and aggression by armed groups is making the situation of indigenous people even worse.
Records show more than 33,000 indigenous victims in all departments of the Colombian Amazon. At least 66% of the victims are women, children, and young people.
So they ask to be included in the implementation of the peace agreement.
They are ignoring takeovers from various multinationals that led to thousands being displaced. This wasn't taken into account in the peace process.
Communities are pleading with the government to remove a bill that will allow for more extractivist practices and reduce their rights further.
Guyana's government is denying reports that its nationals living in Trinidad and Tobago were being denied support as they grapple with recent flooding in the Twin Island. Foreign Affairs Minister Carl Greenidge, who's also acting Prime Minister, dismissed the opposition suggestion. He says the country's embassy in Port of Spain is providing services to the affected Guyanese national. Meanwhile, fresh flood fears have arisen in Trinidad with a yellow adverse weather alert still in effect. We'll take a short break now. More news after this.
Enjoy our programming from Monday to Friday, where you'll find the best information on culture, innovation, conservation, human well-being. Keep up to date on the latest innovations in science and technology with Atomun. The habits and knowledge you need to live a healthy lifestyle are on Guide Your Body. Environmental consciousness is required to preserve our Earth. Undergo your transformation on Green Zone. All about equity, diversity, and respect for identities on By Gender. Cultural manifestations, they are in all its forms and the stories of real lives. Every day we feature a wide variety of content. Only on Telesur, the news source from Latin America and the Caribbean.
Welcome back. Workers at Google are going on a worldwide strike in protest against the company's treatment of women. Staff at the multinational technology company will demand key changes in the way sexual misconduct allegations are dealt with. Among their demands are an end to forced arbitration, which would allow victims to sue in court. The walkout comes a week after allegations surfaced of sexual misconduct by the Android software creator Andy Rubin. Cape Town Mayor Patricia de Lille has resigned from her position as city mayor and as a member of the Democratic Alliance Party. She made the announcement at the Western Cape High Court, where she filed papers challenging a resolution by the council to have her charged for criminal wrongdoing. Last week, 5 Democratic Alliance Cape Town City Council members resigned, citing racism in the party. And now let's take a look at some of the other stories making headlines around the world.
The black box from the Lion Air jet that crashed into the Sea of Indonesia has been recovered, along with part of the jet's fuselage. The black box will be key to revealing why the plane with 189 passengers on board nosedived into the Java Sea. There were no survivors. The murder of the Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi was ordered by high-level officials. That is according to the spokesperson of Turkey's ruling Justice and Development Party, Ömer Salik. The crisis in Saudi Arabia continues as the journalist's killing remains unsolved.
This action couldn't be performed without the permission from high-level officials. The way the act was organised, the fact that it was pre-planned, which the Saudi prosecutor told us, it shows that it was deliberate. The question now is when this brutal crime, as our prosecutor says, that he was killed immediately after he entered the consulate and his body dismembered, was planned. Who performed it? And who gave the orders? We have to find that out.
An all-eye zone and a ban on military drills have taken effect as the two Koreas end hostile acts near the heavily fortified border. A 40-kilometer non-fly zone has been established near the border. The measure was part of a military accord reached last month. It includes a halt to all hostile acts.
In Kenya, female genital mutilation is illegal, but that hasn't stopped the practice in the town of Kuria. What's needed is for women to start a movement to raise awareness so that they can put an end to the tradition once and for all. This is what one local human rights organization is advocating for.
Jane is a victim of female genital mutilation. It happened when she was just a child. At age 15, she got married, so her brother could continue his education. Eventually, she left her husband to spare her $2 of the ordeal. She's now the founder of the organization that aims to help girls.
Some people choose to mutilate the girls right after their birth. Why would one make a child pass through all this pain and the trauma only for what they want the baby to be later? I don't think the law had any impact, actually. It created more problems than before. This culture is still alive and puts women in a position in which they cannot speak on their own. They are forced to marry, to get pregnant when they are still very young. This also creates high levels of poverty.
A solution is possible with education and awareness for women. Those who escape are unsupported, which is something that needs to change.
I keep my girls at home because they have nowhere else to go.
The law doesn't help girls. If their parents are arrested, they're left isolated. Just like Jennifer Gatti, her mother fled her husband's house with no resources to continue studying.
For me, genital mutilation doesn't help for anything. The Korea community must abandon this. Education can help them. If they go to school, the girls could get a degree to get a job that they like.
When we talked to the mother, she said that the husband's brother kicked her out of the house after she didn't allow her daughter's mutilation. They told her she was bringing a curse to the family and that she shouldn't stay with them. She rented a room and every day she does different little jobs like carrying water or washing clothes for others. Sometimes she cleans someone else's house. That's how she pays for her daughter's necessities.
The girls keep living as always. They only think of having babies and leaving school.
We really need to educate women so they take their own decisions in life. There's no other way. If you believe that your parents can do that for you, that you'll get the life you want like that, that won't happen in this culture.
These women want to raise the aspirations of young girls so they can reject age-long customs that inflict unbearable pain that lasts a lifetime. From Migori, Oscar Epelde.
And we've come to the end of this news brief. For these and many other stories, you can find them on our website, tellusyourtv.net/English. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Tell Us Your English, I'm Soini Gray. Thank you for watching.